Hello, my name's Nerissa and I'm a visual and community artist who likes working with recycled fabrics. Today I'm going to take you through making a fabric apple. These can be used as pincushions or paperweights or just as decoration. Apples are often associated with learning and health and gifts. We all know the phrase, "An apple a day keeps the doctor away," and an apple for the teacher. As part of this workshop, I'm going to ask you all to think about your gifts and to write a positive message to seal inside your apple. A bit like a fortune cookie, but sealed forever. You only need simple materials and basic sewing skills to be able to create one of these apples. I like to use a real stick as my stalk because it helps the apple to connect with nature. You can leave it plain with just a leaf or add embroidery or beading to embellish it. The materials you will need are a plate or lid to draw around, pens, paper and scissors, a short stick and glue, fabric, a needle and thread, dried pulses or rice to weigh it down, soft stuffing, actual toy stuffing if you have it, but you can use chopped sponge or fabric scraps if you don't, a small piece of card and a bit of garden wire or fuse wire, but that's not essential. Firstly, you will need a plate or lid to draw around. I find that about 20 centimetres gives you an apple-sized apple. You can make them different sizes if you have a different size plate, but always remember that your apple will turn out about half the diameter of your plate. Firstly, you will need some suitable fabric. I like to use recycled fabrics, especially clothes that have been stained or damaged, so no good for passing on. I find they are softer and easier to work with, having been washed many times. Some clothes and fabrics can evoke memories. I used an old school dress to make one for a teacher. I've done this workshop with a mum's group as well, and a couple of them used old baby clothes their kids were now too big for. I quite like making golden ones with fabrics from charity shops, as often outdated party clothes end up on the £1 rail, and I feel it's next up landfill, so I don't mind chopping them up. It doesn't matter the condition, as long as you can fit your plate or lid on it, avoiding any of the damage. The fabric can be cotton or man-made, woven or jersey, but jersey will give you a fatter apple, as it will stretch when stuffed. But it's best to choose a fabric that isn't too stiff, so that you can get a nice round shape and doesn't fray too badly, as you don't want the stitches pulling out of the edge when you start to gather it. To start, you need to lie your plate on your fabric, draw around it and cut it out. You can use a pen or chalk depending on your fabric. You want it to show up well so that you can follow it when you're cutting it. It doesn't matter that it shows up because it's going to be tucked inside your apple. You want your fabric to lie nice and flat, so you may need to iron it before you start. If you've got a small pattern, try and place your plate so you have the least waste. If you have a big pattern, think about where you're placing it in regards to that pattern. Particularly with circle patterns like this one, the centre of where your plate is ends up being the centre bottom of your apple. If you're using a pen, like I am, I recommend using a newspaper so that you don't draw on your table. So now we've got our circle. We need to stitch a running stitch all the way around the edge, about 1 centimetre in. So we'll need a needle and some thread. You want to have plenty of thread to be able to get all the way around and then gather it. But you don't want too much that it's going to get in a knot. So I tend to find that if I do to my nose and to the end of my arm, that gives me about the right amount. So pull it through and double it over and tie a knot in the end of both of your bits of cotton. This makes it stronger, and it also means that when you're pulling it to gather it, you're not going to lose your needle off the end and have to rethread, because that's really frustrating. So as I said, start about 1 centimetre to half a centimetre in and just do a running stitch all the way round. A running stitch is just where you go in and out and in and out. You can use quite a big running stitch, about 1 centimetre. As you can see, rather than doing one at a time, I like to thread several stitches onto my needle in one go and then pull through. As you can see, it's formed a nice little bowl shape. So don't cut it off, just tuck it neatly into the side of your fabric bowl and put that to one side whilst you make the contents. Now we've done that, we need to make our core. First, you need to get your stalk. As I said before, I like to use a real stick. It needs to be about 3 or 4 inches high, so that it goes from the bottom of your apple and sticks out the top. Don't worry about it being a little bit too long, you can always trim it off at the end. You want it so it's not too thin, because you don't want it to snap whilst you're in the middle of making. And then as thick as you like, really. I like about 3 to 5 millimetres myself. Next, you need a strip of paper to write your message on. We're going to glue that to the bottom of our stick. Nobody's ever going to see this message, so it's up to you what you put. But when you look at that apple and when you give that apple, you will know that you are sending that message to them. It can be a positive message, it can be a famous quote, a line from a song, or something positive to you if you're going to keep it for yourself, to remember your strength. Once you've written your message, roll it up, and you can either use a little bit of tape, or I find old loom bands very useful for this. I still have lots lying around because I had children who were just the right age when that craze was going. I also tend to hoard all the little bands that come with my spring onions. But as I said, a little bit of tape will do as well. So, back to our apple. Now, to add the stuffing. So, open it out a little bit so that you can get into it. And first, we need to start with something to weigh it down. I like to use lentils because I always have really good intentions, but then always end up with some which have gone out of date in my cupboard. So we've got a nice little layer of lentils in there, just enough to weigh it down. So you take your stick and bury that in the centre of there. Next, you need your soft stuffing. I've got real toy stuffing, but don't worry if you can't get your hands on that. There's many other things that you can use, like chopped up car sponge or fabric scraps. Even cotton wool or an old sock. So make sure it's stuffed all the way around your stick and then pull it tight to check you're happy with it, and then you can loosen it and take stuff out if it's too tight or add some more. I think I need a little bit more. Once you're happy that it's fat enough, pull it tight and make a knot to secure it. You won't get it fully neat and fully tight the first time, don't worry, we'll go back and neaten it up. To make your knot, get a loop, put your needle through and then pull. But don't cut it off. Now we want to stitch round again and pull it tighter and tuck the ends in. And gradually it will come closer and neater to your stalk. As you can see on pass 2 I've got a lot tighter, so once again I'm going to do a knot and I'm going to get some little scissors to tuck my ends in. And then this time I'm going to stitch across rather than round to bring it tighter. Right, once you're happy with how tight that is, if you feel you've still got enough thread, which I have, then you can keep going. If not, if you're feeling that it's a bit short, this is a good moment to tie off in a knot like I showed you before and rethread your needle. So if you've rethreaded your needle or still got enough, let's move on. So now we need to make the what's called the blossom end. I only discovered that this is what it was called recently. I I used to always just call it the apple butt. But the technical term is blossom end. You can either do just a few stitches or a little star, but it helps to just give it that appley shape and make it feel more like an apple. So to make that, we pass our needle all the way down to the centre of the bottom. If you've got a pattern which has a centre, try to aim for that, but if you've just got a pattern like I have, don't worry about that. So once you've got there, put it back in and go all the way back up to the top again. And we're going to give it a tug, and you can see that we're getting a nice dimple there. To keep your dimple, you need to do a knot as before. See, that's held my dimple. Now you've got your dimple, now to do the pretty bit. You can either do just a few simple stitches or a little star. It's up to you. Once you're happy with your blossom end, head back up to the top and tie off as before, and this time you can snip off. To stop it fraying, I like to add a little bit of glue around the top. I'm using PVA. It may be white at the moment, but don't worry, it dries clear and it will seal the ends of your fabric and your threads. So once you work that into your work, give it a little squeeze, and there's your apple. Now your apple is ready for a leaf. I'm going to show you two different options, one with a wire and one without a wire. First, the one without the wire, because it's simpler. I've got some green card, but if you don't have green card, you can always use greens you find in magazines and a bit of cereal packet to do this. Because mine's green on both sides, I can just cut it out. So remember, if you're making your own, you're going to need to put green on both sides of your bit of card too. First is to draw a leaf shape and cut it out. Next, you want to fold it down the middle. This gives you some shape. Then do a little snip at the bottom there, and then that will fit on our apple. Doing it this way means you've got a better area to glue to your stick. Otherwise, you end up sticking it to the side like that. So you would add a little bit of glue just here and here, and then stick it in to your stick like that. But I'm going to put that to one side and show you how to make the other type. You can use felt or leatherette for this, but you're going to need two pieces the same. So once again, drawing a leaf shape, because they need to be the same rather than drawing two leaf shapes. Draw one, cut it out, flip it over and draw around that one, because then you know they will match. So remember to flip it over before drawing round it, because then we don't have to worry about symmetry. We're going to want to use these to sandwich the wire between. So I'll cut that one out as well. So put glue on both sides of it, and I've got a little piece of garden wire here. You can get various different types in your local shops. So sandwich the wire in between and let it dry. If you've got any overhang where they're not the same, you can then trim it off. As that needs to dry. While your leaf is drying, you could take this opportunity to add embroidery or beading, as it's much easier to do it at this stage than once you've got your leaf on. I'm not going to do that to this one. I'm just going to go straight ahead and put a leaf on. Here's one I made earlier. So start tight into the bottom, but as gentle as you can, because you do not want to snap your stick at this stage. It is quite fiddly because you may find it spins whilst you're doing it, but just take your time, because it's better to take time than feel that you've wasted time because you've snapped it. So there we go, it's all in. Give you a bit of a shape and snip to the desired height. I like to put a nice little bit of a jaunty angle. And there, you have your apple ready to give to a friend. So now your apple's complete. I hope you're proud of it, and I hope that when you look at your apple, you remember that message of positivity that you sealed inside it. Happy sewing. Goodbye.